I really truly believe that we can have a healthy, happy co-parenting relationship where like the kids are still going to be the main focus and the main priority, and they're not going to see us as not a family unit. Are they really horrible and toxic, or is the way that you are handling situations also contributing to that toxicity? Because even if they are the most horrible person, they are still the father, mother, whoever, whichever version it is for you, of your children. And if they're going to be in your life, and if they're going to be in your kids' lives, how can you make this the most beautiful and peaceful, loving relationship that you can, despite whatever happened between you two? You have the power to choose too. Make it as beautiful in your mind as you can. Use the law of assumption. Your thoughts create your reality. And if you think it's going to be toxic shit, then I would take a look at yourself, because like there's probably a role that you're playing in that also. Hello, you guys. Welcome to the Expand and Evolve podcast. This week, I wanted to talk to you about co-parenting. And I first wanted to start by saying, what if your co-parenting relationship doesn't have to be toxic? And whether you are in a committed relationship and you're listening to this, whether you are kind of tiptoeing around the idea of potentially splitting up with someone and you're really afraid of what that co-parenting relationship will look like, that was me. I was super afraid to make the decision to split because of all of the toxic representations of what I had seen in a divorced family unit. And so thinking about that, that was a major fear for me, was like, even though I know that this relationship doesn't suit me, even though I know that this relationship doesn't feel like what I'm supposed to stay in, am I really supposed to just stay for the kids if the relationship doesn't feel aligned anymore, if it doesn't feel like it's for serving either one of us? And then in addition to that, just moving through like, okay, but what does that look like if we choose to separate? And is it going to be toxic like all of these other situations and circumstances I'd heard of in the past? So I wanted to talk about that because I feel like this is something that I've always been passionate about, just to help you understand, like, it doesn't have to look the way that maybe you had seen it before. And I've talked about this before too, where like maybe in the past, like you just imagined divorced families were terrible. You hear that as a major wound for a lot of people. Like, well, and then my parents got divorced, and that's, something's like touching my window. Anyway, that's a major wound for a lot of people where like their life transformed and their life changed when that happened. And it was a pivotal moment for them that they still remember to this day. And I have a lot of thoughts there because for me personally, I didn't tell my kids, like, just so you know, mommy and daddy aren't going to be together anymore. We're divorcing now. We don't love each other anymore. We're going to be living in separate. I didn't do any of that. And I think that, in my opinion, I don't know, we'll see how it works out when they're older. But for me, intuitively, it just felt like, why would I explain to them something that they don't have the ability to understand? It was almost 2 years ago now. So how old are they? 4 and 5? Like a 4 and a 5-year-old don't understand marriage. They don't understand relationships, and they don't understand what that dynamic even means or looks like. So why would I explain it to them in a way that sounds horrifying? Because think about that. For that little 4 and 5-year-old who the mom and the dad is their entire world, and they're told, like, your mommy and daddy don't love each other anymore, and we're going to separate. Like, that feels like their world is crumbling down as they know it, because all they have is you guys. And so you're creating this space of like unknown and separation, and saying that there's no love there, which all they understand is love. That's their whole life. That's everything they know at that point. And so we didn't do any of that. When we split, we did it amicably. We did it together. We handled our own stuff with each other. It wasn't involving the kids. Anything that we did in that beginning phases to help it normalize it as much as we could was spend time together as a family still. We are still a family. And I think I really want to drive that point in, like, whoever you have chosen to have children with, whether you like it or not, is your family for life. And obviously there's circumstances and situations where there's abuse and there's neglect and they're a douchebag, and like that's challenging and that's tough. Yes. And acknowledgement. Look at this beautiful, there's an eagle just like soaring over top, and it is stunning. Like the big wingspan. Anyway, if you navigate a relationship, you had a child with this person, you've chosen to separate from this person, take responsibility for the choices that led you to that point. Take responsibility for what in you chose that relationship. Take responsibility for what in you attracted a person like that. If they're such a crappy, horrible person, such a douchebag, horrible, and you hate them, and you don't want to have a relationship with them, or you don't want them in your life or whatever, ultimately, if you have split custody with this person, if this person is still going to be in your life, because if they still somehow have some level of custody, whether it's split custody, where they still get to see their child, all the things, like that's someone that's going to be in your life. And so you get to choose, okay, what do I want this to look like? And how can I, on my side of things, handle this with the most amount of like love, for example. And when I looked at it, like I felt my vision for us splitting was I really envisioned us being able to in the future have Christmas dinner together, go to their birthday parties together, go to my friends' birthday parties together, go to family events together, go to their big moments together. Regardless if I had a new partner or he had a new partner, I envisioned that structure where it was like we get along good enough. We were basically friends. I really truly believe that we can have a healthy, happy co-parenting relationship where like the kids are still going to be the main focus and the main priority, and they're not going to see us as not a family unit. Like we can still, regardless of us choosing not to be in a relationship, can show them that that never changes the fact that we're still a family. And I think that is the root of what is so important, is like when you choose to separate, if you tear the family apart, that's because you decided to disintegrate the family unit. You can choose not to be in a romantic relationship while still very much keeping the family unit together. Does that make sense? So, for example, like big events, they don't have to choose. I think the most toxic thing that you can do is make your kids choose and put your kids in the middle of making them like, who do you want to be with more, mommy or daddy? Ooh, who do you like more, mommy or daddy? Ooh, like all that weird manipulative shit that I've seen parents do. And I'm sure you guys have, and maybe you've even done this if you're listening. Like that's feeding your own ego. And you need to take a look at like, how can I be the responsible adult and mature here to not put my children in the middle of my own stuff? And that's where I was going with that other point of like, take responsibility for the fact that something in you attracted this person in, something in you was willing to accept poor treatment, something in you liked the asshole at some point because you slept with them. So it's like something in you was okay with that treatment. Acknowledge it. Don't just blame the other person and say that they're the douchebag and they suck and all that stuff. Like part of you was okay with that at some point, or else you wouldn't have a child with this person. So bringing that in to be like, okay, that's hard to like take a look at ourselves, but acknowledging like, okay, what in me allowed this, and then go to work on healing that thing. Like identify your worth, identify why you were willing to be with somebody who was such a crazy narcissist or such a crappy person. Like what in you allowed that, and what in you was okay with that enough to choose to sleep with that person. Like you have to take some responsibility to look at what role did you play. And when you start to take a look at like what role did you play in attracting that type of person and building a relationship with that type of person and choosing to have kids with that type of person, like have compassion for yourself, because maybe you're like, shoot, like I just didn't have any value in myself. I didn't have any worth in myself. I thought I could fix him. I thought I could make him better. I thought it would be different with me, even though he sucked with his exes and he was such a D-bag with them. Like just take a moment to acknowledge that. And obviously, if they're a super horrible, toxic person, ideally, they don't really get a lot of time with your kids anyway. But then at the same time, it's like, are they really horrible and toxic? Or is the way that you are handling situations also contributing to that toxicity? Because even if they are the most horrible person and there's no changing that, and you truly believe that, the way I like to see it is like they're still the father, mother, whoever, whichever version it is for you, of your children. And if they're going to be in your life and if they're going to be in your kids' lives, how can you make this the most beautiful and like peaceful, loving relationship that you can, despite whatever happened between you two? And I know that can be hard. Your ego may not like that. They cheated on me and he did this and he went and did blah, 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 whatever the thing is. If you have worked on yourself and healed, I think that beats all over my hand if you're wondering why my hand looks like that. If you have done the work on yourself, if you have done the healing, if you have forgiven and released and accepted, you won't have such a strong emotional charge, and you're going to be able to see them for the person that they were, with gratitude for them coming into your life and giving you and allowing the space to create these beautiful souls that you now call your children and your babies who you love so much. There has to be a level of gratitude for that, because without them, your child that you love so much would not exist here. A level of gratitude for that, a level of gratitude for everything that they have done and have shown up to do. There's lots of stuff that I wish my kid's dad could like do or whatever. And it's like, but is that helping? Because that's not the current situation. So how can I find love and acceptance for who he is and the father that he is to my kids right now? Despite our relationship stuff, despite us choosing not to be together, how can I still find love and respect for him? And I think that that's something that's in your power, is acknowledging like, how can you find acceptance for the way that things are? How can you find love for that person? How can you get to a place where you can respect them as a human being again? Because that was really tough for me. I lost respect. And it took me about 1.5 years to get to a place where I could like acknowledge him and respect him as a human being. That's not quick. So I'm not saying like you split and everything's perfect and great. But if you continue having this like hatred and bitterness and is it animosity? I don't know why that word's coming to me, but and like these really emotionally charged feelings about that person, there's no way your children aren't going to pick up on that and feel that. And so it's like, how can you come to a place where there's love, acceptance, and respect for this human being, despite how it ended, despite the awful things, so that your kids feel that? Because ultimately, if you can feel that within you, your kids are never going to feel like they have to choose. Ever. In the way that you show up, in the way that you act, in your energy. Like kids feel energy. They can feel that. And so if you have all these negative feelings about this person, it's going to impact your kids. And that's who it hurts, is your kids. So basically the premise of this was to just come in and talk to you about how I really truly feel like, first of all, healing yourself. So doing the work internally to be able to come to that place of love and acceptance for the person, acknowledging the fact that they're always going to be a part of your family, unless they're atrociously horrendous and like they're no longer in the kid's life at all, because that's how horrible they are. That's different. But like if you have to be in co-parenting relationship because they still deserve time with their kids, that other parent still matters. You're still going to be sharing custody, all that stuff. You're still going to be having to see them at events and things. Like that's the more of the co-parenting relationship I'm talking about, where you need to resolve that within you. Okay. And then acknowledging like you're still going to be a family forever. So if you have a traditional, more, like typical co-parenting relationship where both of you are still very much involved, you're a family. Your kids see you as family. Don't make them choose. Don't make them feel like it's separate. Don't make them feel like it's either mom or it's dad. It's mom and dad. Come together and learn how you guys can have conflict resolution, have serious conversations, come together as a family unit. And in those big decisions and all of that, how can you show up for each other? A really great example of this, I find, like it's almost been 2 years for us now. And my ex was over the other day and the kids like kind of like, I think it was Maddox, kind of talked to me like pretty rudely. And he went, "Don't speak to your mother like that." And that level of parenting, to still have that mutual respect for each other, that he wasn't like, like, look how he talks to you and like that childish behavior, but to still be coming together as a unit is what is so powerful. Like the kids still need to feel like they have mom and dad. Mom and dad are not separate. So I just wanted to talk about that you are always going to be a family. And so really coming to a place of, when it comes to conflict resolution, like think of how you would resolve a conflict with a friend or a family member. How can you get to a place where that's how you deal with the hard stuff with your partner or your ex-partner, sorry. Because I think that is powerful when you can come to a place where you see them as family. Like this was something that I had to acknowledge over the last 2 years, where it was like, but I love him. Like this is so confusing because like I don't want to be in a relationship with you, but like I love you. Like when I see you, sometimes I want to hug you. I care about you. I still care about what happens for you. I still care about the person that you end up with. Like that's another topic I want to talk about, is when the new partners come in. Because we've been through it in the last year with some of the people that either one of us like kind of dated, right? And so that's another whole challenging thing. But really to just acknowledge like, okay, what was I saying? Like how can we still love, acknowledge, accept, and respect each other as a family unit? And how can we create that family unit? And how can we navigate conflict as a family unit? So the way I like to see it is like, because I still love him and care for him. Oh, that's what I was saying. How confusing it was. So for a little while I was like, does this mean I still want to be with him? Like, does this mean I still like love him and want to be with him? Like, I'm so confused. Why do I still love this person? And I had to realize like, I still love him because he's like family. He's a friend. He's someone I care about. He's a soulmate of mine. And I had to get to this place where I was like, and that's okay. You can love a man deeply and know that it's not best in the both of your best interests to be in a romantic relationship together. That was like a whoa, because I think for so many of us, we don't even realize that that can exist. Like that platonic love where it could still have a sexual charge, it could still have all of that, but deep down, like this doesn't make sense for us to be in like a partnership together. I love you. You're awesome. I'm still attracted to you. Like I still think he's an attractive person. Obviously, I did when I got with him. Like that doesn't change, but it's like it doesn't mean that I want to be with him. And if you guys have read or listened to the book, You Only Fall in Love 3 Times, this helped me a lot too, to see the fact that like he's always going to be a soulmate of mine. He's always going to be comfort for me. All of that. And my situation may be different than yours, where like you had a relationship with one of your karmic ties. And so it's catastrophic and it's toxic and it's crazy. And go listen to You Only Fall in Love 3 Times, because it will make so much sense to you what I'm talking about when I talk about like karmic and soulmate loves. But for me, it was like, that's okay. And it's normal. I think what's not normal is when we are so hurt and iceboxed and closed off in our heart that we can't feel love for the person who literally made children with us. That's what's messed up. That shouldn't be the normal. The normal should be like, we love, cherish, adore the human being who we made our most prized possessions, our children with. Like that should be what's normal, is that we love that person. And I think that just goes to show our society and how disconnected from our hearts we are, that we think it's weird when people have a good relationship with their ex, or it means that they should want to be together. And the way I had to see it was like, I was thinking of Steph, for example, one time I was talking to her on the phone and I said like, I love you. I still would want to hug you. I would still want to sit close to you on a couch, like because I feel close to you. Doesn't mean I want to be in a romantic relationship with you. And I had to go, whoa, that's kind of how I feel about my ex. Like I still love him. I still care about him. I still want to know how he's doing. I still want to have a relationship with him, but I don't want to sleep with him, basically. Like it's like, I don't feel that. And I don't feel like I want to be in a romantic relationship with him. And so that was like, oh, I can still love you. And it's not weird. But growing up, you see everyone's, split relationships where that's the normal, is they hate each other. They can't talk to each other. You drop your kids off at the end of the driveway. You can't even be in a room together. You have to do separate Christmases. You have to do separate everything. You're creating a divide and separation. That's not, whoa. Yeah. Okay. Let's have fireworks. You're creating divide and separation. That is not love. Divide and separation is like lowest frequencies, fear, all of that stuff. You're creating that and you're doing that to your kids. Who is having to feel that? Your kids. And they have to feel like they need to be the mediators to navigate the divide and the separation. Like that's not fair. And anyways, I just wanted to say pretty much that like you need to acknowledge that you're always going to be a family. How can you get to a place where you see them as family again? How can you get to a place where you love them, you respect them, you care about them, you feel, what did I just do? I unplugged my computer. And how can you build that relationship back? How can you have those difficult conversations? How can you deal with conflict resolution? How do you navigate all of that? Because I think when you get to a place where you can do that and navigate that with that person, like you can build a really awesome, strong relationship. And the other thing I wanted to say was like utilizing law of assumption. Like me and him are not bad people. We're good people with good hearts. And I had to be like, even though everyone else was telling me like, oh my God, it could get crazy and it could get toxic and it could get blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't think it will for us. I really don't. Like maybe there's going to be ups and downs, and there's definitely been challenges. There's been arguments. There's been people that have come in that like have caused rifts and issues and all of that. But ultimately at the end of the day, it's like, I use law of assumption truly to be like, to assume the best, to assume that we will eventually one day when we can move through all of our own stuff, have everyone together, have his partner plus my partner together, be with the kids, that they could build a relationship. And it was honestly, the reason I'm talking about this is because today at the gym, I had this moment where I went, there was a girl I saw actually, and I was like, see, a girl like that, like I would have no problem if he was dating her. I would have no issue. I could hang out with her. I could have a relationship with her. I would want to be friends with her. I would want her to be around my kids. And that's when I realized like previous people, I was like, they're a nightmare. they're toxic as F. They are a big, huge red flag all over it that I'm like, of course I'm not okay with this. And of course I don't want this person around my kids. But I had to let go of control of that and like be like, okay, it could be this and this could be what he chooses for his path, but I'm going to hope and pray that he discovers that like this is not the type of person that he wants to be with and that he lets that go eventually. But I couldn't control it and I couldn't play mommy and like navigate it all. Like he had to discover that on his own, and that's hard to trust that. But we also had a mutual respect of like, I mean, he went and introduced people to the kids and stuff like that. And that was challenging for me because I thought we had an agreement on not to do that. So like there's been stuff that has not made it easy. But ultimately at the end of the day, I continue to come back to the fact that like I need to be the one to sit in love, acceptance, and respect. And regardless of what he's doing and how he feels and what he feels about me, the only part I can play is what I feel within me for him, and trying to get to that place over and over and over again, even on the times where he's like, it's crushed me and it's been hurtful. And there's been things that have made me want to punch him in the face. Like all of that, it's like, but how can I come back to love and acceptance? Because he's going to be in my life. How can I come back to this place where like we can try to mutually understand each other and respect each other for the sake of our kids? And ultimately, I just want to say like, it's really selfish to stay in conflict. Like if you choose to stay in conflict with your person, and this is the difference. They may choose to stay in conflict with you. You can't control that. But what you can control is how you handle it and how you respond to that. So when you feel like you're going to have an emotionally charged reactive response to what they're doing, hold back for a moment, center yourself, ground yourself, and try to see this from a lens of love. Like that has helped me a ton. Is like when the shitstorm was going on of different stuff, it was like, okay, how can I remove myself for a moment? Because I'm in a lot of like deeply emotionally charged things right now, and come at this from a place of love. How can I come at it and like just assume and trust that like he wouldn't jeopardize our kids, that he wouldn't do anything to harm them? How can I just assume and trust that? And that's really hard to let go of control. But ultimately, I knew like, what else was I going to do? And I had to just trust that he was going to figure it out on his own path. And like he is, and he has. And I think giving it time, like when we first split, he was so mad at me for like a year. So no, we didn't have a great co-parenting relationship. But in the midst of all of that, we still put our kids first. We still did birthdays together. We still did cut cake together. We still did Christmas together. We still did Easter together. We still did Thanksgiving together. Like we still did big events together, regardless of what was happening between us for them. And I think that's something before I ever had kids, I was like, that's what I imagined for anyone going through a divorce. It's like, why do people have to turn so selfish and so hateful and angry? Like, I understand that things happen that hurt your feelings and hurt you, but like the only person that hurts is your kids. So it's like, it's your responsibility as an adult to move through the shit, regardless of what they did. They could have been having sex parties in your bed and you found out and it destroyed you. They could have been doing drugs behind your back. They could have been doing whatever. It could destroy you. And it is what it is. And you need to work on how do you heal that, let it go, forgive it, go to all the therapy, go to plant medicine, go to retreats, do whatever you have to let it go. And then ultimately at the end of the day, see, this was happening for you. Maybe you never would have left this person if this big thing didn't blow up in your face. Maybe you would. And then that thing, like I truly believe at this point, those moments filled with so much pain actually set you up in order to be able to navigate and move through and grow through the next phase of your life, which has always been waiting for you. But you needed that thing and that painful thing to happen in order to shake things up, to break your heart so that it could open and move you towards that next thing. And so instead of holding that grudge and that resentment and that tension, like the only person that's harming is you. You don't need to let go of the fact that they hurt you. You don't need to forget about the fact that they hurt you, but you do need to eventually let go of all those feelings that are happening within you, because it's only harming yourself and your kids. Okay. Yeah. Anyways, using the law of assumption to truly see like what kind of relationship do you want to have with that person, and what kind of co-parenting relationship do you want to have? Do you want to be able to do things together? Do you still want to be able to take a family vacation together? Do you want to be able to do Christmas together? Do you want to do birthdays together? Do you want to be able to have family dinner together? Do you want to be able to invite him over and cook him dinner and not feel like mad about it because you still love him and care about him as a person? What do you want your co-parenting relationship to look like? Write it out, get clear. Your thoughts become your reality and you are in control of that. So if you write it all down and envision what you want it to look like and a conscious uncoupling between the two of you, It may not work out perfect. Both parties may not be on the same wavelength here, but all you can do is try to make it as amicable and peaceful as possible. Right? Right. Okay. Anyway, so I would get really clear with that. The same way you would get clear with like what you want in a partner or what you want your business to look like or what you want your home to look like. Get clear with what you want your co-parenting relationship to look like. I want all of that. I want to eventually be able to do family vacations, to be able to stay in the same house together, to be able to laugh together, be able to do dinner together, like do stuff together. And like whether he has kids in the future or I have kids, I know I'm going to. Someone messaged me the other day and they were like, dude, you have a daughter that's swirling around and God told me I needed to tell you this. And I was like, I feel her too. So don't be surprised the minute that I'm in a new relationship if I'm pregnant quick because this girl wants to come in. Anyway, yeah. So like regardless, if he has kids in the future, like I want to be like auntie to them. Like I want my kids to feel like all of us are connected and all of us are a big family. I never want them to feel like they have to choose between parents. I am clear on that now. So how much do you think and likely do you think it is that I'm probably going to have that type of relationship? I think it's pretty likely because I get to choose. You have the power to choose too. Make it as beautiful in your mind as you can and trust that it's going to turn into that. Use the law of assumption. Your thoughts create your reality. Okay? And if you think it's going to be toxic shit, then I would take a look at yourself because like there's probably a role that you're playing in that also. All right? All right. Obviously, this is not every situation. Some people are really, really horrible human beings and you're a really good human being and you have a great heart and it just ended up like that. And I'm sorry that it happened like that for you and it may not be perfect, but then you have to find acceptance for how it is. Right? And then trust, do the freaking work so that you can find an amazing partner next and not choose the same douchebag again. All right? Okay. The next thing I wanted to say, start praying for their future partner. So right now, it's like I felt this really compelling feeling earlier today. I was at the gym, and this is why this conversation is happening because I messaged him about it too, of like, I want to pray for this person. Like, I want to pray for his healing for one, that he can tap into his heart and feel what he needs in this life and the type of person that he wants to be with, and that he can acknowledge himself and how good of a human he is and his heart, and that he'll be in a healed enough place that he attracts his counterpart that is the same. And that she's going to be amazing and she's going to love my kids and she's going to feel like this like light and bright breath of fresh air. And I'm going to like want to hug her and love her. And like, we're going to end up being friends. I just started imagining that. And I was like, oh, like that made my heart feel good thinking about that. And for me, it was like, wow, I feel like I've really turned over a new leaf because there was portions last year when I found out he was dating people, I didn't have that reaction or response. I was very like, ugh, like I didn't like it. And now I like almost brought me to tears because I was like, that's what it's going to be like. And it's going to be beautiful. And all those fears that I had about not splitting because I was so worried about what the co-parenting relationship would look like and me damaging my kids or me tearing the family apart because that's what men love to say on the internet. They will, by the way, if you're a female and you choose to leave someone, the men are mad. The men are real mad and they will tear you up on the internet for it. But who cares? Like you need to choose what's best for you. And sometimes not being in a relationship with each other is what's best. I know, like we had this conversation today. He's like, I'm a simple guy. I want a simple life. I don't. I want a big life, a bold life. I want to impact people. I want to create a school system, you guys. Like that's not simple. So for me and him to stay together, it's like I was constantly trying to drag him to a place that he doesn't want to go. And so it's like, that's unfair for me too, to expect and want him. Like, why aren't you growth minded? Why do you want to grow? And why do you want to create something big? And why do you want to start a business and like be a massive entrepreneur and like make all this money and like do all these things? He's like, I'm chilling. Like, I'm happy. He likes to watch movies. He's okay with working at, like as an employee. I can't stand that. So like, if you guys are two completely different people, it's okay to realize like, dang, if I try to stay here with you, I'm never going to feel like I'm living up to my potential. And if you try to stay here with me, you're never going to feel good enough because I want all of these big things. And you're like, you're not even interested in that. And so he was coming along for the ride for me because he loved me, but that's not what he wants for his life. And so am I really destroying my kids by choosing that like, hey, you know what? We're not like a great partnership here anymore. I love you and I care about you. And this is gonna be the hardest thing I've ever done. But like, I know there's someone better suited for the life I want to live. And there's someone better suited for the life you want to live. And we can still love each other and respect each other for our differences. Okay. Okay. Anyways, and so I had to just feel this like, it's okay. And so if you're sitting there and you're so afraid of splitting because you're like, but what if, but what if, but what if? I see you, I feel you. I went through it for 2 years in just the most tumultuous time of my life of dealing with that internally, but not speaking it out loud to even him, to saying how I was feeling. I was so afraid to tell anybody. I was so afraid of what people would think. I thought I was going to be a failure. I thought all of my like Christian, God loving friends were going to think I was the devil. I was so afraid of what people would think. And that I was going to destroy the relationships with everyone in my life. Truly, that was a big thing. And I was worried about destroying my kids because everyone says you ruin your kids if you split. And I was just talking to someone today and I was like, my kids are so happy. They're so happy. I was at their dad's this morning. My dad was there and like, we're all still so connected. I'm like, hey, what's going on? And I go over to their house and we hang out and they show me stuff. And then they're like, okay, I'll see you later. They're chilling. They're good. They don't feel this like divide. Do they miss him sometimes? And sometimes ask like, why doesn't daddy stay here anymore? And I have to like deal with those questions. Yeah. But ultimately when they get older, they're going to understand. They're like, wait, you can choose to leave someone because it doesn't feel like a fit. Like that's empowering. It's going to be empowering for them when they finally get to that place. So anyways, in closing, this doesn't need to be much longer. Use law of assumption. You get to decide what you want that future version of your co-parenting relationship to look like. Don't not split. Like, don't just stay for the kids. Like, I know that's what people do is they stay for the kids. But if you're miserable and your soul is like crying out for help and you don't feel like yourself and you know it's not in alignment and you feel that, don't just stay for the kids. Your kids might be better off if you choose to split. I'm an example of someone who's told my parents for years, you guys should split up. I don't know why you're together. And they haven't, and they stay together, and it's misaligned. It doesn't make sense. So it's like, in that circumstance, it's like our kids figure it out eventually. They're smart. They're going to be able to see right through it if your relationship doesn't look like a healthy relationship. It's okay. The most important thing is that you are still there for your kids. They still know they have mom. They still know they have dad. They still know that you love them. That's what matters. It's okay if you guys are apart. What happens though, typically when parents split, is that one of the parents leaves fully, thinks that they have to leave fully. That's when it's catastrophic and leaves them with like such deep wounding. If you're still involved, like I can't imagine my kids are even going to have a deep memory of like, and then my parents split and that's when everything do. I don't think that's going to be their story because to be honest, sometimes I'm like, dude, you guys even realize what happened? I don't know. Like there was moments, but yeah. Anyways, so create the vision of what you want to have in your co-parenting relationship. Have the tough, difficult conversations and try to cultivate that with each other. Pray for their future partner that they're going to be amazing and loving and love your kids and care about them fully and wholly and accept them as their own. You get to see that and create that. And also do the deep healing work to have forgiveness and let go of whatever happened in your partnership so that you can show up united for your kids as much as possible. And don't let fear be the thing that stops you from, like, if you really feel it in your heart. And I'm not actually an advocate for people splitting. I think a lot of the time people split too soon when like they could have actually worked it out together if they were willing to have the tough conversations and work through different stuff. But sometimes, like there's a difference of like, it's tough and we fight and I don't know. And then you split versus like, it's a deep soul knowing within your soul and your heart that like, this relationship is not meant for you. And you can feel that. And you're only holding on because you're like, it doesn't matter because I don't matter. And like my kids matter more because your kids feel it. They see it. They can sense it. And truly like how much happier I am in my day to day without that like angst and resentment that me and him had living in the same home together is so much better for all of us. Yeah. So that's that. Of course, it was like a little 222 on the screen. I just truly I was just feeling it today where it was like, this is an important topic and people need to know that it doesn't have to look how they've seen it and they can build a healthy, harmonious co-parenting relationship if they choose to and if they want to. And if you're both really awesome, good people, why couldn't you? So have those tough conversations, try to create an open space, try to forgive each other, love each other, still do stuff for your kids together. And it will be so worth it in the end. And I hope that this, for anyone else that assumes every ending of a relationship when you have kids is horrible and toxic and like divorce, hopefully you realize that it doesn't have to be. And your kids can still be super happy and have both parents super involved, and no one has to leave anything. Like both of them are here. And like here's another thing. I've talked about this before, but like if my kids are like, I want to hang out with dad, I tell them to come over. If they're like, I want to see mom, I go over. So it's never like when they're at dad's, I'm not accessible. And when they're at mom's, he's not accessible. I do not do that. I don't have the like, it's my time or it's your time. Take them. Like that's such childish bullshit. So don't do that to your kids. You like when they need you, be there, regardless of whose time it is. Yeah, and they will thank you so much when they're older and they realize they didn't have to go through the toxic, horrible shit show that it could have been if their parents were immature and unwilling to do the healing within themselves. So thank you guys for being here. I love you guys. If you like this episode or if you have someone who is afraid of splitting and like wants to just have a vision that it doesn't have to be toxic and doesn't have to be horrible, send this to them. If you know someone who's in a co-parenting relationship, send this to them. And I encourage you, if you are in that relationship or you're about to be in that co-parenting relationship or you've been in it, have the difficult, challenging conversations, maybe even go to therapy and decide how you can come to a very neutral place with each other, so that it impacts your kids in a positive way. And like it doesn't negatively impact your kids, I should say, and find a way that you guys can be in the same room together, because that will work wonders when it comes to something like their wedding or graduation, and they don't have to freaking choose and they get to have all of you together, because ultimately that's what they want, is they want their whole family around them feeling loved and not feeling like there's drama or animosity or like they have to choose sides, because that's really challenging. Okay, thanks for being here. Hopefully that made sense. I came up to just do this as fast as I could. I really appreciate you guys, like being on the podcast. This is just like my outlet to be able to share from my heart and like just speak freely. And for all of you that do share it, that do listen to it, that do send the episodes to people, that have liked it, that have subscribed. That's another thing. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe. I really, really, really appreciate it. It means the world to me. And I know that it will continue to reach the right people. So I love you guys. Thank you. Have the best day and envision a beautiful co-parenting relationship, and make sure that you pray for that future partner in your ex-partner's life, because it's going to impact your kids. Bye.